So thank you everyone for coming for this wonderful glorification on Sunday morning of Srīmad Bhāgavatam. We are discussing Canto 1, the creation, chapter 12, birth of Emperor Parīkṣit, and verse number 30 today. So please recite the Mangalacharan with me, and then we can discuss Srīmad Bhāgavatam. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakauram Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Canto 1, chapter 12, verse number 13. Please repeat after me. Seshaloke Vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvahya Seshaloke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvahi Sayesha loke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvahi. Sahesha loke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvaya Sahesha loke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvaya Sayesha loke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvaya Sayesha loke vikhyatah Parīkṣit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan Parīkṣita nareshvaya. What word translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What word? Saha, he, Eshaha, in this, Loke, world, Vikhyataha, famous, Parīkṣit, one who examines, Iti, thus, Yat, what, Prabhu, O my king, Purvam, before, Drishtam, seen, Anudhyayan, constantly contemplating, Parīkṣita, shall examine, Nareshu, unto every man, Iha, here. Translation. Please hear very carefully. So his son would become famous in the world as Parīkṣit, examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. Perfect. Maharaj Parīkṣit, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord even in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation of the Lord was constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parīkṣit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord, and therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination, and thus Maharaj Parīkṣit was always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord by remembrance. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord like Maharaj Parīkṣit. I will repeat this. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord like Maharaj Parīkṣit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parīkṣit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother. But even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Srīmad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. Such a beautiful purport. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhaktivedanta purports ki jai. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayet. Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttam shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtike. So thank you for coming again. I want to take you back to some verses and see, close your eyes and think if this happens to one of us. Some interesting exercise. Because when we hear we miss the human aspect, the emotional aspect in this. Yes, we have to understand, in Krishna consciousness is very interesting. Many people come to Krishna consciousness in the beginning because of emotions. I love my Lord, my Laddu Gopal, my, Krishna is so beautiful, I love. But they have very little knowledge of the Siddhanta, the science. So come with emotions, then what happens? The Harekrishna devotees will tell them, actually you don't know anything, so let me teach you. So then slowly the Siddhanta, the philosophy comes, right? But then after we understand the Siddhanta, then again what happens? We have to have emotions for the Lord. Yeah? Because then you perform bhakti with emotions, with love. So you have emotion in the beginning without the knowledge, then you get the knowledge, but it ends with also emotions, but with knowledge. Yeah? So here I'm trying to bring that aspect here. So, now just think, the parents of Parīkṣit Maharaj in an ordinary circumstance. Yeah? Let's go to verses 25, 26 and 27. Okay, someone also read the translation of 25, 26 and 27. Loudly please.
This child will be like Bali Maharaj in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaj, a performer of many Ashwamedh horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome.
After hearing his death, which will be caused by the bite of a small snake bird sent by a son of Brahmana, he will get himself free from all material attachments and surrender into the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him.
Did you note anything significant here in these three verses? Now, what is the scenario here? What's happening here? I mean, what's happening here? Like, what's the context? What's the scenario? What's happening here?
The context of Parīkṣit Maharaj being eaten by a snake bird.
No. When are these words spoken? Who's speaking these words?
The sages.
The astrologers. Yeah, Parīkṣit, the Yudhishthira Maharaj has asked for the astrologers to foresee the future of Parīkṣit Maharaj and what qualities he will get. Yes? Now, imagine the astrologers coming and glorifying everything and suddenly saying he's going to die very soon with a snake bite. Did we think of this, at all when we went through these verses? No. Because, so when we meditate upon these verses, we should understand actually it's such a profound statement, The astrologers are glorifying the qualities of Parīkṣit Maharaj and suddenly they speak about his death. I mean, who would like, I was telling last week one of the devotees, not yesterday, or the Saturday before that, it was one of the devotees' daughter's birthday and they sponsored the feast. And at the same time, I got a call during the midweek and they said that one of my uncles has passed away, so I want to do the prayers. And so, I asked the devotee whose daughter's birthday, the feast was being sponsored and all that. I said, Prabhu, is it okay if we can announce both? He said, why? He said, when I was starting in the Graceful Temple, something similar had happened. And without understanding, then when I announced, the person whose relative had passed away, he was very upset with me. He says, for me, it's such a serious thing, and you are announcing like with the happy occasion of someone's birthday? How can you ever do that? So then I understood, okay, this is what, our feelings is. That yes, when we read the scriptures, we should also understand that there are emotions involved, but in this case, because both Yudhishthira Maharaj, the astrologers, and of course when Parīkṣit Maharaj is going to come, they are both very pure devotees, advanced devotees. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is very coolly hearing about the death of Parīkṣit Maharaj. So here, in this verse again, what we read today, does it make sense, or am I going off the tangent? Or because when we read sometimes these verses, I always like to, even in our classes when we do chapters, after we finish a chapter, studying in depth, then I just request the devotees to go through the translations so that you know the flow of the chapter. And then once you know the flow, then you can actually see, okay, yes, why this, why not this? Suddenly, if these people are talking about the qualities of the little boy, why are they talking about the death of the boy? I mean, is it normal? You know, you have astrologers sitting in your house and they're speaking about the future, and then suddenly they speak about the death. You know, people generally avoid these topics. But here the scriptures are, waking us up like that. So coming back to verse 30, two words which are very important here, which are the 2 points which came out. One is the impression. Yeah? Parīkṣit Maharaj, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord, and then Prabhupada speaks about his own impressions from the childhood. Yes? Correct? Okay, so let's see what's happening here. And then, based on the impressions what we have, we also develop relationships, with people who are around us. Correct? Do you know anyone who's, come up with not very good impressions, and their relationships are, how those relationships would be? No, just elaborate, please. Where do you see people who have got these impressions from the childhood? When they grow up, what happens?
They have the same impression.
Same impressions, and the relationships are built upon those impressions. So here, Prabhupada says, very interestingly, very important, that Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord, like Maharaj Parīkṣit. But then Prabhupada says, okay, even if we are not as fortunate as Maharaj Parīkṣit, right, but even if we are not that fortunate, we can do so by becoming Krishna conscious ourselves and by imparting that impression to the other people who are around us, including our family. Now again, I want you to think closely. Close your eyes and think. What impressions do we carry, and for how long have we carried these impressions? What do you think? How long have we carried these impressions?
We carry the impressions which came from the childhood.
Okay.
And carry it on most probably throughout our life.
Okay. Anyone else?
My reflection is, I just thought about this because I work in mental health, and this impression that Srila Prabhupada has mentioned is what I come across because I used to work with children before, and this is resonating to what I deal with on a daily basis with work, in relation to it, is where the childhood when there's trauma, and when you say about trauma, it's about the negative impressions, the things that they endure, is carried through their childhood. Now I work with adults, and that childhood traumas, actually they're still dealing with that. They still have problems and everything because of what has happened in their childhood. They carry that right to their adult, and the mental health, the severity of it is with that connection, a massive connection to the childhood, what they have.
Yes. So, in one sentence, you can say that the child who has carried the impression, negative impression from their childhood is going to continue in their adult life. But you think the impressions only from this life we are carrying? many thousands of past lives. Now just imagine, when we are sleeping, those impressions are coming as dreams. When we are chanting, our mind is going on. It's like as devotees describe, when we're chanting, the thoughts in our mind is like an uncut horror movie, badly directed. Someone who has not directed a horror movie properly, and if you see the uncut movie, our thoughts are like that. So these are the impressions we carry. Of course, then we need to work on them, because this is the only chance we have. In human life, we have come at a time when 5,000 years ago Krishna came, 500 years ago Srīmad Mahaprabhu came, and just about 50 odd years before Srila Prabhupada came. So we are very fortunate. So now we have to understand that how I can gather more Krishna conscious impression. The similar case happens in the case of Dhruva Maharaj. Gauranga Darshan Prabhuji has done a very nice short book on Dhruva, and he relates the whole pastime with the contemporary, the modern ways of thinking. So we know the story of Dhruva, right? That his father Uttanpad, he had two wives, Suniti and Suruchi, and Dhruva was the son of Suniti, who was not the favorite wife of King Uttanapad. And his other wife Suruchi was his favorite. So one time Dhruva wanted to sit on his father's lap, and he was just about to go and jump on his lap, and then the Suruchi came, the stepmother came, and she said, "No, you cannot sit here." Dhruva said, "Why cannot I sit here?" He said, "No, only my son is allowed to sit on the father's lap." And Dhruva was furious. And then what did Suruchi tell him? That you do some pious work, you worship the Lord. In the next life, when you take birth from my womb, then you will be able to sit on your father's lap. Imagine Dhruva, he's a Kshatriya boy, and the impression he carries is very, very strong as a Kshatriya. So we're talking about impression. Then what does he do? He goes to his mother, Suniti. You can see also the names, Suniti and Suruchi. Suruchi means, it's always like material ruchi. Right? It's not Suruchi, it's material ruchi. And Suniti is, Niti means someone with a value. So he goes to his mother Suniti, and Mother Suniti gives him 3 pieces of golden advice. And Gauranga Darshan Prabhu very nicely mentioned this. 3 pieces of golden advice. So Dhruva is upset, he's angry, he's a 5-year-old Kshatriya boy with very strong Kshatriya impressions, and then he goes to his mother. So keep this in your mind, right? So Suniti tells Dhruva that, "My dear son, please don't wish ill fortune for others, even though they've caused you pain." So even though your stepmother, your stepbrother, to a certain extent your father have caused you pain, don't think ill about others. So this is the impression we have to also carry in our lives. Because right now we are a small community, we are working nicely with each other. But once we grow and more people come with different mentalities and different, conditioning, different impressions, right? We need to understand that, we need to deal with everyone and also encourage. At the same time, we have to be tolerant. So, what Suniti says, don't wish ill fortune for others, even though they have caused you pain. Now, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu very nicely explains that 3 things happen here, not just one thing. He says, when you tolerate injustice, what has been done to you by others, there's 3 things happen. First of all, when we don't retaliate, when we don't react, and we tolerate, we become peaceful. Okay, whatever has happened is okay, fine, my karma, no problem, Situation was like that, maybe give him benefit of doubt, give him her benefit of doubt, like that. So we become peaceful. Second thing what happens is, over time, transformation takes place in the other person also. Right? So they also understand, okay, even though I did not behave with this person for some time or more time, whatever it is, but this person did not retaliate. Maybe something wrong with me, they might introspect. So, they will also transform in time to come. And the third very important point is that this will leave a legacy, a trail for others to follow. People will understand. This person, he was dealt with unjustly, but he did not react. So first piece of advice is that don't wish ill fortune for others, even though they have caused you pain. Second point, he says, please understand that anyone who inflicts pain upon others suffers oneself from that pain. So why do people behave the way they do? Because they themselves are very sad, very upset, very not very happy. You've heard the theory of garbage in, garbage out, right? What is garbage in, garbage out? Both, through your ears, through your whatever comes in goes out. So this theory says, yes, someone who's inflicting pain on you, they are suffering from that same pain. We can understand, if someone is inflicting pain on us, we can understand that we must have inflicted pain on someone else. So now this person is the agent of bringing that pain to me. There's a second piece of golden advice, right? So something like this happens in our life. Again, two ways we have to think about it. One is, externally we can deal with situation as humanly as possible. Sometimes it's not possible also to deal. Sometimes, we might be, very much hurt. But try to deal with the situation as humanly as possible. Yeah? As humanly as possible. Because it's very easy to react and retaliate and respond. But when we, as one of our devotees said, when something like this happens, wait, pray, respond. So when you've waited enough, normally they say, when you've written any messages, any emails, text, WhatsApp, whatever it is, if you've written in an emotional state of mind, don't press the send button immediately. Or if you're doing something in the evening, don't press the send button in the evening. Sleep over it in the night, and then next morning when you are calmed down, go through it once again and press the send button. So second point is that yes, you are externally addressing the situation as much as humanly as possible, but then internally also, you are trying to recognize with our scriptures and bring harmony in your life. Yeah, we can take example of Dhruva Maharaj here. We can take example from Parīkṣit Maharaj. His grandfather was told that he's going to be, dying, at a young age by snake bite for a very small fault of his. I mean, it's not a big fault. Imagine someone just cursing you, like a 10-year-old kid cursing you. You're going to die in 7 days. You're going to die by snake bite. Even in that situation, Parīkṣit Maharaj was very cool and calm. So, okay, this is my destiny. So he thought that this is the plan of the Supreme Lord, and let me just adjust to it, and this way he brings a harmonious balance in his life, and the result is Srimad Bhāgavatam for us. Yeah. And the third one is, he said, Suniti, she said that okay, what your stepmother has told you is correct. You should pray to the Lord. So you go out and pray to Lord Vishnu, and then He will guide you properly. So obviously, the situation was neither in Suniti's control nor in Dhruva's control. But did Suniti react in a negative manner? No. She gave the right advice to Dhruva. She said, okay, worship Lord Vishnu. So, we understand that many times the life situation is not under our control, but our response is under our control. And same thing happens when we chant, when we read, when we do devotional service, when we pray to the Lord. Right? the mercy which Lord gives, is it under our control? No. But how much we pray, how much we can, as Gaur Prasad Babaji says, there's only one price you have to pay to get the mercy of the Lord, to be advanced in the devotional service. And what is the price? Laulyam. He says greed. He says greed for devotional service is the only price you have to pay to attract the mercy of the Lord. That's all. You have to just be greedy for service all the time, for chanting all the time, for doing any same all the time. Just this morning when I was driving here, my mind was just thinking, okay, what happened last night? So one thing came out in my mind last night, and I was thinking, please forgive me for saying this. You know how the businesses have, the BDMs. What is a BDM? Business Development Manager. We have a PDF family here, book distribution family. Sundararani, yesterday Lolakshmi Mata said, okay, I want to also distribute books. So she was kind enough to come out and distribute books to the newcomers. So I was thinking, this is such a nice family we have, it's a book distribution family. So BDM, BDF. So this was, my mind was working. I said, this is how we see things happening around us. And when we understand the situation is, life situation is not under our control, but our responses. Prabhu is, going through some health challenges, but your mother said, okay, we are doing what best we can, but let us also do something extra to help others to understand this wonderful Krishna conscious philosophy. So this is what this verse brings to us, that yes, the impressions are there. And then we come to relationships. Relationships. We also heard the story of the two boys whose father was a drunkard, right? Alcoholic. So the two boys were growing in a family. The father was an alcoholic. And when they grew up, one boy was complete alcoholic and the other boy was complete teetotaler. So they were both asked, says, how come you are an alcoholic? He said, I have only seen my father drinking. I've not seen anything else. So all I could do is just do what he did. Just become a complete alcoholic. And they asked the other boy. He said, I have seen, my father is drinking and I didn't want to do that at all. So this is the impression coming from the previous life. That they're both in the same family, but one's perception is very different than the other. So this is the impression we create. And then we can see the relationships also. Right? They both will have very different relationships. So Prabhupada very beautifully also gives us very, very wonderful insight into his personal life. And actually if you see Prabhupada, we see sometimes Prabhupada just as, as a founder Acharya and as a, wonderful devotee and all that, but this is his personal side also. Prabhupada says that his father was a pure devotee, and we can see if you read Prabhupada Lilamrita, it's given that his father, as we know that the saying is that real estate is your means of income, but chanting Hare Krishna is your occupation. Yeah, nursing or mental health is your means of income, but chanting Hare Krishna is your occupation. So this way, Prabhupada's father was a cloth merchant. So his means of income was a cloth merchant, but his occupation was puja. He would spend hours and hours doing puja. And in the evening also, when he closes his, shop in the night, he will just put a little, like prasadam for the rats, in the bowl, so that the rats don't eat his clothes there. He was a cloth merchant. Something simple, and Prabhupada saw this. Prabhupada says here, yes, his father gave him a deity of Radha Krishna, and he used to imitate, what's going on in the nearby temple, Radha Govinda temple. I think ISKCON has recently acquired the temple, also Radha Govinda temple. And Prabhupada also, he shared his childhood with many times the devotees. He said he was a naughty boy. So one time he went to a fair and he saw a toy gun. And then what do you do? I want a toy gun. I want a gun, right? So his father was very, kind upon him. And then he gave him a toy gun. And this Prabhupada happy. He just laid on the floor and said, no, I've got 2 hands, I want 2 toy guns. So this was Prabhupada. One time Prabhupada, later on when he had some Western disciples, they were coming to Calcutta and they were, going for a morning walk and they're passing through Victoria building, the Queen Victoria building in Kolkata. It's a very famous landmark in Kolkata. And so Prabhupada is showing the disciples, look at that building. So when we were children, we used to climb upon that building. So Prabhupada was like that. And Prabhupada says here very, very nicely, he says that by constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. So Prabhupada was a young boy, and Prabhupada's father, Gaur Day, he will give him all the facilities so that he could develop that inclination of being a wonderful devotee. So when Prabhupada was in school and college, Prabhupada says here, but in my youthful days, later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. Of course, we know this Prabhupada's humility. Prabhupada is the pure devotee, so at no time he has forgotten Krishna. But he's just saying here that because of his association in school and college, or lack of association with devotees and temples, he had lost the practice. But then we also know that once he came in touch with his spiritual master, the fire of reaching the fire of devotional service, the fire of spiritual life, burnt again. So Prabhupada was, you can see when we read these pastimes, when we hear about these pastimes, it's not that Prabhupada is a static figure in the past. No, he's a dynamic figure. And he would always encourage the biggest and the best ideas. He will ask the devout disciples, okay, in this situation, what should we be doing? And then the devotees will come up with different ideas and he'll pick up the best and the biggest ideas like that. When Prabhupada, after he established ISKCON, he, had so many temples, so many gurukuls, goshalas and all that around, but still, his attention to details was amazing. His attention to detail was amazing. So we can see how a pure devotee behaves. Yesterday we heard the shlokas where Arjuna is asking, how does a transcendentalist, how does a Siddha Prajna, talk, how does he walk, how does he behave? So one story was there when in the manor, I think it was manor, if I'm not mistaken. They had, there's a room, then there's a bathroom, then they put up a partition there. And, on the window of the bathroom, they kept a plant there. They kept a plant there. And the devotees are there. Prabhupada went just to, take a little shower. And Prabhupada, then he peeped out of the door and he says, who is responsible for this? He just yelled, he goes, who is responsible for this? So devotees didn't know what was wrong because they just put a new partition, everything was new. And then he pointed out to the plant which was shriveled. It was not watered properly for quite some time. So Prabhupada's attention, no, if you are doing something, you have to be responsible for what you are doing. So while his thoughts are going on for his international society, worldwide, but he's still aware of the minutest detail that the plant is not being watered here. And then again when Prabhupada is going for a morning walk, this was in Hyde Park in London, same place I think. And the devotees are walking and there's a willow tree there. And Prabhupada tells one of the disciples not to go get a little twig from the willow tree. And so the disciple goes and gets the twig from the willow tree. And he says, okay, get maybe another one. And the disciple goes and breaks one more. So the moment he tries to break more than two, Prabhupada says, stop. So the devotees are thinking, why? Prabhupada says, no. If we don't need anything more, we should not even disturb the plant. Because we need one or two, and as you know, Prabhupada used to use the twigs for brushing his teeth. So in the Western countries, neem was not available easily those days, so he used to brush with willow tree. And Prabhupada said 1 or 2 is enough. When we come tomorrow, we'll take more. So even for the trees, he used to make sure that no, we should not disturb if we do not want anything more. So basically Prabhupada was showing the Ishavasya verse, that whatever is in your quota, you just be happy with that. Do not endeavor more just for the sake of collecting. In your quota, whatever is there, you'll get it. So this is the amazing life of Srila Prabhupada. Then this Yogeshwar Prabhu, he writes that he asked a question. He says, I used to ask irrelevant questions to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada's answer was just amazing. Whether you ask him whatever question, his answers were fantastic. So just when this twig incident happened, Yogeshwar Prabhu said, I asked Prabhupada, back in the temple, says, Prabhupada, what do you see in a tree? What do you see in a tree? What sort of question is that? What do you see in a tree? So Prabhupada actually completely, first of all, deflected attention from him. He says, a pure devotee, he didn't say me. He says, a pure devotee sees the soul in the tree. And the pure devotee doesn't only see the soul, he sees the super soul in the tree. That means he sees the living entity and Krishna everywhere. So pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. So when we have impressions like this, when we hear constantly, we can understand that this is the basis for having our impressions, going on from here. And when we have these impressions, then we can understand, we can pass on these impressions to others if we are convinced. Otherwise, what does Krishna say in the 8th chapter? 8th chapter is the chapter on death, We never think about death. But what does he say? Antakale chamam eva smaran mukva kalevaram. Yes, that at the end of the life, whatever you are thinking, you will attain to that state. Yes, whatever you're thinking, you will attain to that state. And then the Sri says, yes, what does the verse say? Yes, yam vapi smaran bhavam tejati ante kalevaram tam tameveti kauntaya sanatat bhavita. That whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Now, interestingly, after these 2 verses, that at the end of your life, when you're dying, whatever impression you have, whatever you're thinking, you'll get that nature, get that next life. If you think of Krishna, you will go back to Krishna. But then how do we do that? So he immediately gives us a solution to that. And then he says, please repeat after me. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. So that means sarveshu kaleshu, all the time. Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Mam anusmara yudhyacha. So what does that mean? What is the meaning of anusmara? Yes. Who's Mam? Krishna, yes. So tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, what does that mean? At all times. What do you do? And Mam anusmara yudhyacha. So what's Arjuna doing? Fighting. And what are we doing? Little fighting. In the whole battles. So Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. This is what is going to form an impression. That at every stage, you always think of me. Maya pitamano buddhir mameva shashya samsaya. So this way, Krishna says, that with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So what does Krishna say here? Yes, we are going to fight our own little battles on a daily basis. But what does Krishna say? If you want to remember me at the end, then while you perform your activities, remember me. So this is how we are going to create our impressions. Yes? That, and through Maharaj, imagine his impression. His impression was so strong that even after he heard the golden words from his mother, when he went to the forest, who did he meet first? Narad Muni, right? Narad Muni gave him very nice advice. He said, my son, you're a 5-year-old man, just go back. Just go back to your kingdom, just relax. You don't have to be so uptight about these things. These things happen in life, And what did he say? Yes, Narad Muni. And Narad Muni, of course, gave him the entire Siddhanta, right? Entire Siddhanta. But he says, yes, I actually understand what you're saying. But right now I'm so angry that I will not accept it. I'm afraid I will not accept it because of his Kshatriya impression, Kshatriya spirit. So when we have this impression of Krishna consciousness, take it the other way around. That even if things, the situations are against us, we will be, very sthita pragya. That yes, these things will happen to me, but I must continue fighting my own battles, remembering Krishna. So this is basically from this verse, this purport. And there's a little poem which is written by a very wonderful English poet called William Blake. And when we see Prabhupada, we should see like this. To see a world in a grain of sand. So when you see the grain of sand, someone imagines that they can see the world there. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Because, flower again is a creation of the Lord. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand. And we think it's very finite, right? But when we are with Krishna, these palms become infinite, especially at the time of receiving mercy. Yes? When we are with Krishna, when we are receiving mercy. So hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So even in an hour, we can do so many things. So to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. And the devotees used to say that this is how they saw Prabhupada. That Prabhupada used to interact with the world like this, as if everything is belonging to Krishna. And we must appreciate that everything belongs to Krishna, and whatever best we can do to serve Krishna, we must do that. And then the last sentence of this purport is very beautiful, of compare and contrast. Can someone read the last sentence of the purport, please?
Prahlada also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood, otherwise one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others.
Yes, Maharaj Prahlad also advised, what does the word say? Kaumarat acharya pragyo, Kaumarat acharya pragyo, dharman bhagavatam iha. Basically saying that we should start bhakti from the age of 5. When we are 5 years old, we should start bhakti. Yeah? And how many years we've already lost? So Prahlad Maharaj also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. So this life, you can compare it with any other species of life which is temporary, but also contrast this human life with other species of life which is very valuable. So we know that Durlabha Manava Deha, Durlabha Manava Janama Satsange, Tara Hoye Bhava Sindhure. Like Govinda sings in this beautiful bhajan, Sita Adapa Bata Parisana Edina Jamini Jagine, Vipale Sevana Kripana Durjana, Chapara Sukala Balagire, Shavana Kirtana, Smarana Vandana, Pada Sevana Dasyare, Pujana Sakhidana Atmanivedana Govinda Das Abhilasare. So in the previous stanza he says that this life is tottering like a water drop on the lotus petal, leaf of the lotus, and anytime it can go. So it's very valuable life but very temporary, so we must make full use of this life. We have some minutes, we can go to the next verse. Any questions or comments? Yes, no? Okay, we've got everything clear. Okay, so verse number 31, 1:12:31. Sarajaputro Vavardhe Sarajaputro Vavardhe Sarajaputro Vavridhe Ashu Shukla Ivodupaha Ashu Shukla Ivodupaha Apurimanam Pitrubhihi Apurimana Pitrubhihi Kashta Bhirivaso Navaham Kashta Bhirivaso Navaham Saha, that Rajaputra, the royal prince, Vavrithe, grew up, Ashu, very soon, Shukle, waxing moon, Eva, like Udupaha, the moon, Apurimana, luxuriantly, Pitrabhi, by the parental guardians, Kashtabihi, plenary development, Eva, like Saha, Anvaham, day after day. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. As the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince Parīkṣit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facilities of his guardian grandfathers. So he had 5 grandfathers, 5 Pandavas. I think we'll stop here. 8:30 is already. Maybe we can do one more verse. What do you think? Yeah. Yakshamano Ashwamedhena Yakshamano Ashwamedhena Yati Droha Jihasaya Yati Droha Jihasaya Raja Labda Dhano Dadhyo Raja Labda Dhano Labdadhyo Nanyatra Karadandayoho Nanyatra Karadandayoho Yakshamanaha, desiring to perform Ashwamedhena by the horse sacrifice ceremony, Yati Droha, fighting with kinsmen, Jihasaya, for getting free, Raja, King Yudhishthir, Labdha Dhana, for getting some wealth, Dadhya, thought about it, Na Anyatra, not otherwise, Karadandayo, taxes and fines. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Just at this time, King Yudhishthir was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen. But he became anxious to get some wealth, for there were no surplus funds outside of fines and tax collection. As the Brahmanas and Vipras had a right to be subsidized by the state executive head had the right to collect taxes and fines from the citizens. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the state treasury was exhausted, and therefore there was no surplus fund except the fund from tax collection and fines. Such funds were sufficient only for the state budget, and having no excess fund, the king was anxious to get more wealth in some other way in order to perform the horse sacrifice. Maharaj Yudhishthira wanted to perform the sacrifice under the instruction of Bhishma Deva. So again, Prabhupada, very beautifully actually gives some nice information as to how the administration should be run here. Yeah, because the king has to think, and they will not just like the modern governments do. What is the biggest item of expenditure in any country's budgeting these days? Defense.
Oh, defense, yes.
Defense is the biggest
Yes.
item of expenditure in any budget in any of the state governments these days, any of the governments these days. So just imagine that, like people might be suffering, people might be struggling, whatever is happening, but they have to spend money on defense. I mean, how governments work. But here, Prabhupada very kindly just tells us how the pure devotee like Yudhishthira Maharaj, who's a Rajarshi, he's thinking, okay, I've got the taxes and fines, all the surplus is being used in the battle of Kurukshetra. I want to do Ashwamedha Yajna, what should I do? And then of course he sends Arjuna and the others to everywhere, mainly Arjuna because his name is, what's his Arjuna's name who collects wealth? Yes. Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means one who is collecting wealth for Yudhishthira Maharaj. So here Prabhupada says that the state treasury was exhausted and therefore there is no surplus fund except the fund from tax collection and fines. The only solace which we can get in the modern days is the sign where the city council says, your fines is used for your safety. I don't know whether that actually happens or no, but they say it's for development of roads or safety of the passengers or whatever it is. But here we can see that Prabhupada says that the tax collection and fines, and interestingly the Sanskrit is kara, dandayo. Kara means the tax and danda means fine, danda. And he's trying to get some more money to do the Ashwamedha Yajna. Maharaj Yudhishthira wanted to perform the sacrifice under the instruction of Bhishma Deva. So Bhishma Deva has already instructed him for 56 days when he was lying on the battlefield of on the bed of arrows, now after the war had finished. And Yudhishthira Maharaj learned how to perform these Ashwamedha Yajna and how to finance it. So we'll stop here. Any questions or comments? Reflections?
Prabhuji, can I get that verse where you mentioned the Bhāgavatam, like what we should do to like Krishna?
Yes, 8, 5, 6 and 7, Bhagavad Gita. 8, 5 he says, one who thinks of Krishna will come to Krishna. 8.6 he says, whatever you think of when you are at the time of death, then you will attain that nature. And that's why he says, if you practice Krishna consciousness, 8.7, like Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manusmas Yuticha, Maya Pit Manobuddhir, Mame Vishusasham Shaya. Without doubt, you will come to me. When we do our daily duty, and that's how Prabhupada made this wonderful society, wonderful programs, that we have morning program, and the whole objective of us coming here is not that just, okay, nice, I'm coming here, but what are we taking back from here in our daily lives? When we hear every morning, what do I do with what I've heard that half an hour during the rest 23.5 hours? Whenever I'm chanting or whatever I'm doing, we should understand that these impressions must be carried on throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, like that. And that's why Prabhupada has given us the whole formula. Right? We've got morning program in the beginning in the days, in the temple there were evening program, and in the day the devotees will go out and do Harinam, distribute books, collect Lakshmi, like that. But of course now we have got, it was what we call a Sankirtan-based society, now we have a congregation-based society. So we all live in our homes, but can we make our home a temple? And then not only become fortunate ourselves, but can we give it to others? So the whole process is there. This temple is just built just for that purpose, that we all come together as a community, practice our own sadhana, practice our own spiritual life, take home whatever we have learned, the impressions, and again share with others. Yeah? Okay. Anyone else? Anything? ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद।